Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Chinmay. I'm a grant specialist and today I'll be explaining the guidelines for Centers of Research Excellence CREs 2026. In today's session, we'll be looking at some objectives and intended outcomes of the scheme, followed by some overview of the grant opportunity. And we'll look at some key documents and resources, eligibility criteria, the key assessment criteria, outcomes with snapshots from the past 5 years, application requirements, and checklist for applicants. The objectives of the scheme are to improve the health outcomes for students and also promote the improvement of translation of the knowledge gained into outcomes or health policy and practice. Also to support researchers in building capacity activities across areas that are identified by NHMRC. The intended outcome is supporting the conduct and development of innovative and high quality research. It has to be collaborative research and promoting effective translation of knowledge into practice. And health policy, the other intended outcome is to foster capacity building in the area of the CRE, in the area in which the CRE is funded. Also provide opportunities to expand and improve collaborations across different universities, health institutions, and hospitals, and etc. The overview of the grant opportunity. We're talking about NHMRC CREs 2026. The key dates are the applications opened in Sapphire on the 1st of October 2025. The minimum data is due on the 29th of October, while the scheme closes on the 19th of November 2025. So the project duration is 5 years. This is a fixed project duration for all CRE schemes. If your project is successful, the expected project start date is the 1st of November 2026, unless you submit a deferred commencement variation request for your grant to start in 2027. Please note there's a maximum of 12 months of defer in commencement variation approved by NHMRC. The funding available is $66 million dollars across 22 applications, which means it's $3 million per application. And we look into how the 22 applications are split. So out of 22, 6 are in basic sciences research, 5 is in clinical medicine, uh, 6 in health services research, and 5 in public health. So these are the broad research areas across which they're distributed. So why is there 6 in basic research, basic sciences research, and health services research? Because one in each is being funded by the funding partner with NHMRC for this scheme. So the funding partner for NHMRC for basic sciences research is Bowel Cancer Australia, and the one in health services research is Aging and Aged Care Australia. So these are going to fund one CREs in each of these to ensure that very targeted center is established addressing those needs. There's an HMRC policy on use of generative AI in grant writing. So if you're using generative AI in writing an application, that please be very sure that you read this policy before you use that. The policy says if the information written in the application is incorrect or there are inconsistencies due to generative AI giving you the wrong information, the CIA will be held responsible for that. Key documents and resources. So the key documents for this scheme are available on Grant Connect. As if you would have seen our previous video, I've clearly said that in order to log into Grant Connect, to download these documents, you will need to log into Grant Connect. To log into Grant Connect, you will need to create an account on Grant Connect first. So please do that. The documents are available on Grant Connect and Grant Guidelines, which are guidelines to applicants to submit their application. Then we have peer review guidelines. These are the guidelines given to the reviewers of your application to ensure the review of your applications are fair. So it will be good to have a look at those as well, just to see what sort of advice is given to the reviewers, so you can incorporate that or keep that in your mind when you're writing an application for this fund scheme. Then we have the grant proposal template. It is a template on which the grant proposals are expected to be submitted by the NHMRC. Then we have NHMRC's website. So we have put links in there for the NHMRC's website and the other peer review resources. So please have a look at those before you start writing your application. Then we have the application portal. NHMRC is accepting applications for this fund scheme on Sapphire. So please make sure that you have an account on Sapphire to start your application. Without having an account on Sapphire, you won't be able to create a new application in Sapphire, or be a part of any other application led by any other organization. So please make sure you have an account on Sapphire ASAP. Eligibility requirements. So there are two sections of eligibility requirements. One is the project team, as you know, the CIs and AIs. Then we have multiple grant held eligibility. We'll look at the project team once first. So the CIA must be an Australian citizen, New Zealand citizen, permanent resident, or have a valid work visa for the period of the grant, which is 5 years, and be based in Australia for greater than or equal to 80% of the funding period. Up to 10 CIs and AIs are allowed per application, no more than that. Now we look at the multiple grants held eligibility. So there's no limit on the number of grants you can apply for or be a part of. However, you have to make sure that no duplicate applications are submitted across different streams. That's why I mean you can't be a part of one application submitted for basic sciences research, and then be a part of another application submitted for health sciences research, which is a duplicate application. That doesn't work. Also, there's no limit on the number of applications or the number of CRAs you can concurrently hold. But one important thing to note is the amount of CI time will be considered in assessing your applications. These are big grants, so please make sure that you are appropriately splitting your time across different CRAs and different projects. Because if you have very little time allocated to this project, that might actually work against you, because then NHMRC won't be convinced that giving you the funding for this would actually help you achieve the outcomes of the project. Key changes from last round. There will be funding available for one early onset bowel cancer research, one CRE in that, and one CRE in infection protection control in the health services research scheme. We have a new section on fraud and corruption, as directed to the guideline. The section Appendix B, which is the CRE score descriptors for assessment criteria 4, which is facilitating collaboration, which will look ahead, have been changed. What are score descriptors? Score descriptors are marking rubrics that have been handed over to the people reviewing an application to review the application fairly. So if you have been teaching, or you have some experience in teaching, you would be aware of how the marking rubrics work. And those are the marking rubrics given to the grant reviewers by NHMRC. So it is very, very important to have a look at that and what criteria they're looking for. Grant proposal components have been updated, so applicants are required to describe now the proposed distribution and governance arrangements that are, in place for the requested CRE. Is there any other funding coming from another source that would complement the funds that NHMRC will be providing? So that is required to be entered in the grant proposal as well. Assessment criteria. There are 5 assessment criteria which are equally split across 100%, so it's 20% each. So the first assessment criteria is related to generating new knowledge that leads to a paradigm shift in understanding of basic science outcomes, or practice shift leading to an improved health or health systems outcomes. So it's more about generating new knowledge. The second is about translating that generated new knowledge into informing policy or bring it into practice, or so it's promoting effective transfer or translation of the knowledge that you generated in the first assessment criteria. Then the third one is to develop the workforce, the health and medical research workforce, and the opportunities that are being given to people to do that. Then the fourth one is facilitating collaboration. So this is the assessment criteria as we discussed in the previous slide. The score descriptors for this has been updated, so please have a look at that. The fifth one is about record of CI team translation. I mean, have they have experience in translation activities? Have they what is the track record? What are their achievements? Have they have previous experience in translating translation activities, and so on and so forth? All right, we look at the key assessment criteria now. And the first one is more about creating new knowledge, which means it's more about your project details. So is there a clarity of research objectives there? Is the research design or proposed methodologies robust? Are the aims and concepts innovative? Has there a potential to generate significant new knowledge? What's the feasibility of the study that you have proposed? Then the second one is about, as we discussed, translating that knowledge into research outcomes or knowledge gain. So, I mean, what's the impact of the research that you're trying to do? Has there been focus given to research translation? What's the quality of that focus? What plans have you made? Are there commercial groups been involved? And so on and so forth. There also are there plans for promoting centers activities to a wider community? So is the wider community going to benefit from the activities of the center that will be formed if the CCI is funded and so on and so forth? Is there an involvement of consumers in planning research? Like implementation, uptaking research programs, so on and so forth. Have they been involved from the get-go in research planning and so on and so forth? And the third assessment criteria is more about health and medical research workforce development. So it's more about opportunities that are given to the new researchers. Are new researchers brought in? What sort of strategies you're using to build the workforce? Are are you mentoring people? Is mentorship one of the things on cards to increase the capability of the workforce and so on and so forth? That is something that you'll be looking at there. Then in terms of facilitating collaboration, it's about collaboration across different research teams. So you outline past and proposed collaborative arrangements of the CIs that you have on the project. So what are the arrangements that they have previously made? What collaboration arrangements are you looking for, including effectiveness of working collaborations? What are the existing collaborations that are working? What are the relationship of the CI team with the other groups? What are the roles and responsibilities? What is the benefit of the proposed center beyond just the individual components of the CIs? The other thing would be about translational achievements and relative to opportunity for CI teams. So does the CI team have relevant experience to carry the project? Have they had previous evidence of research translation? What's the contribution to the field of research? Have they had enough research outputs? What are their track records? And so on and so forth. So these things will be considered. Assessment process. So peer reviewers will be independently assessing your applications against the assessment criteria, as we just discussed the assessment criteria. So I strongly recommend you to see guidelines section 8.1.2 and page number 13 of the peer review guidelines, because that will give you a clear understanding of the assessment process. You will have the overall scores for the shortlisted applicants will be used to produce a rank, and then funding recommendations will be made. Applications with an overall score of above 4.5 and a mean score of 4 in all criteria will be potentially fundable. So no, I mean that fundability depends on the availability of funds. It's not that all applications that follow that criteria will be funded. Now, this is very critical. So, if your application is in basic sciences research, it's a top application in that broad research area, and you have also nominated for consideration for the early onset bowel cancer research CRE, your application will be nominated for funding. The same thing goes with the CRE in health services research. If you have the highest scoring CRE in that area and have nominated for infection prevention control in aged care, the funding recommendations for your application will be made. Now we look at these individual CREs. So CREs in early onset bowel cancer research. The purpose is to create a focal point of expertise to to increase the awareness of early onset bowel cancer or collaborative research focused on the development of cancer and their treatment. The objectives are to identify the causes and mechanism contributing to this, design and implement strategies or a research agenda, integrate patient voice involvement in whatever you do in terms of building a research design and implementation, develop capacity and capability in this field of research, foster collaboration, build collaborative networks, and demonstrate a commitment to the national and international research data sharing. These are the key objectives on top of the objectives of the CRE scheme. So if you're nominating an application to be considered for this CRE, these objectives should be met as well on top of the broader CRE objectives. So things to remember, things to consider that your application must only focus on early onset bowel cancer, which is diagnosed before the age of 50. If your application is focusing on the bowel cancer diagnosed above the age of 50, then that's a problem. Uh, CIAs are encouraged to provide details of confirmed or potential financial or in-kind contribution that you might be receiving just to leverage the Bowel Cancer Australia's investment. That should be put in the one-page resource management section of the grant proposal. The funder, Bowel Cancer Australia, the team will be required to work closely with Bowel Cancer Australia to help amplify the CRD's research activities. I mean, getting the word out there, being involved with networks and collaborations, published research, going into media interviews, engaging early cancer, early onset bowel cancer advocates, facilitating laboratory tools, speaking engagements and presentations. Also, you will be required to submit an annual report outlining how you have contributed to these activities in collaboration with Bowel Cancer Australia. Be very careful. In CREs and IPCs, it's more of to ensure the health and safety of older people in aged care settings, both residential and community-based aged care. And the goal is also to sustain and build upon IPC capabilities, uplifting achieved, uplift and achieved during the COVID-19 pandemic, embedding a culture of best practice IPC. Now the objectives, as we discussed for previous one, there are some specific objectives for this one as well. The first one is to evaluate the effectiveness and the long-term sustainability of all the strategies. What are the current strategies and how we are going to make it cost effective? Develop evidence-based recommendations to edge case providers. Examine clinical governance frameworks. Explore consumers and family perspectives, roles and responsibilities in this implementation. Optimize microbial prescribing in aged care. Clarify roles and responsibilities among caregivers and consumers. We look at some outcome snapshots from the past 5 years, from the 2021 onwards. So that in 2021, the success rates were 16.2%. That improved to 18.9 in 2022, but went back down to 17.3 in 2023. 2024, it went up again to 18.2, and last year it was 21.2%. Now these success rates, let's look at some application numbers that contribute to the success rates. In 2021, the applications submitted were 105, out of which 17 were awarded, which makes 16.2% as your success rate. 2022 CREs, 74 applications were submitted, out of which 14 applications were awarded, that makes it 18.9%. 2023, 81 applications were submitted, out of which 14 were awarded. 2024, the application numbers were 110, out of which 20 were awarded. And 2025, which is last year, 113 applications were submitted, out of which 24 were awarded. So these are the application numbers, give you a bit of insight in terms of what number of applications were submitted, out of which these success rates have been achieved. Right? These are the national average ones. Right? Now, the number of awarded applications. Now, these applications that were awarded, let's see how they're split across different broad research areas. In 2021 CRE, out of 17 applications that were awarded, 6 were in clinical sciences, 4 and 4 in public health and health services, and 3 in dementia. Right? There were 9 in basic sciences, not one, nothing in one health research. Out of 14 in 2022, we had 6 in clinical sciences, 4 in health services and public health, and that makes it 15, and that makes it 14. Then in 2023, again we had 14. The split remained the same, 6-4-4. Clinical sciences, health services, and public health. In 2025, we had 6 in basic sciences, 6 in public health, 5 in clinical medicine, and 5 in health sciences, health services. So that split was about, and they have 2 in 1 health research. That made it to 2024. That made it to 24 successful applications. Application requirements, minimum data. These are the fields that are required for minimum data to be completed in SAFAC before the 29th of October. Please make sure that you do it. If you don't do it before the minimum data deadline, NHMRC won't let you create new applications in Sapphire. Then we have grant proposal requirements. Maximum length of the grant proposal cannot exceed 34 pages. Yeah, assuming there are 10 CIs on your application. So section A of the grant proposal is the cover page. It will be primarily more of the CI list and a brief synopsis in the title of your project. Then we have response to assessment criteria, the 20-page limit. There are 5 assessment criteria that you need to address. So I recommend having 4 page per criteria. Then we have resource management as one page. As we said previously, if you're applying for early onset or we are applying for IPC, CRE, that resource management will be very critical. Something you need to, in that section, you will need to also accept other resource management data that you put in there. You need to also explain how there's other funding, if there's any other funding coming that will complement to the money that will be given to you by Bowel Cancer Australia or H2 Australia, that needs to be put in there. Then we have CI track record, that's 1 page per CI, and we have 2 page references. So be very clear to address all these things in the grant proposal. And I've put the link to the grant proposal here as well, just to ensure that it can be downloaded from Grant Connect. The link is also on the resource and key documents page up there. The other requirements are top 10 publications. So you will be required to nominate top 10 publications in the past 10 years. And there's one box at the bottom for each of the chief investigator to give explanation for all the 10 publications in one go. And please make sure that you complete that. Something to be aware of, that this box has character limit. So please make sure that you stay within the character limit. Otherwise, NHMRC won't let you certify applications and submit. For each publication, justification or explanation, you must put in your role as a investigator. How does that publication contribute to the research that you have nominating, and why are you selecting that publication? Right? In your citation box, uh, please put the citation in from the past 10 years. Make sure that you remain consistent with the citation formatting. For example, if you're using Harvard, please use Howard all across. Don't change it for one and go back to the other. Also, CRE stream. So that's important. You need to select CRE streams in an application. So when you select basic research or health services research, an additional question will pop up that would say, do you want to nominate your application for those special CREs? You must select yes. If you would want to, third-party research facilities. In the third-party research facilities, TPS, if you're using a third-party research facilities for your project. If you're not, select no. If you select yes to that question, be aware that you will be required to upload a letter of support in that third-party research facility. In terms of budget, there's no budget on this application. It's $3 million straight up for an application, but I strongly recommend working with your finance teams to prepare a budget. So if the grant is awarded, it will be very easy to navigate this budget across the center. Checklist for applicants. Before you create your application in Sapphire, you inform your RAO that you want to apply. Ensure that Sapphire, all the CRs on your application have an account on Sapphire, because NHMRC in the past, in 72 hours prior to submission, they'll stop creating accounts. Also, ask your local RAO for a copy of a successful application, the previous successful application, just to see how people have addressed the criteria. It might not be from the same area of research, but that gives you an idea of it. During the application creation, please ensure that eligibility requirements are met, minimum data requirements are met, all the parts of the application are complete, the grant proposal is complete and uploaded, the profile sections are complete, all the profile information is completed, and make sure all attachments are uploaded as well. Before you submit your application, send your application to a compliance check for compliance reviews. Meet the internal deadlines of your local research office. It's really critical to do that. These compliance reviews are very useful. So please make sure that you do get one on your application. Check all the information is correct. Certify application Sapphire and let them submit. Ensure all images of people are de-identified. Right, so that is very critical as well. All right, let's look at some contact details. So if you have some issues with you need some clarification on guidelines, please email NHMRC at help@nhmrc.gov.au. The phone number is 1-800-500-983. Right, if you have any issues with Sapphire or glitches with Sapphire, please contact the same email or the phone number. They're very helpful. If you have any eligibility questions, please contact the RAO in your institution and they will be able to assist you. If you want advice on your application grant writing, you can contact peers in your area of research or your supervisor, your local area funding specialist, or your RAO. Either of them can help you can help you write applications, can help you give you feedback on what you've written, and so on and so forth. Please note NHMRC will not respond to any queries on the day of submission after 1 p.m. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat below. And yes, if you have liked this video, please like, share, subscribe to my channel. And yeah, if you have any questions, please comment down below and please share it with your family, friends, and anybody you know at your research institutes. Thanks for watching.